Across the world, real estate agents are underachieving. They're missing out on millions of dollars in commissions. My name is Pat Hiban, and in the past 27 years, I've sold over 6,000 homes, selling over $1 billion in real estate volume. My plan is to interview agents from across the world and help all agents create their destiny. I hired Viral Marketing to run my real estate marketing campaigns, and you should too. Go to hibandigital.com/viral, VYRAL, and ask for the Hiban Special. When you're seeking a virtual assistant for real estate, My Outdesk can help. Just ask them. I did. Visit hibandigital.com/myoutdesk and learn about the power of using virtual assistants to grow your business. What if you could predictably recruit the right people for your team? Just imagine how much more business you could do. Thankfully, the National Association of Expert Advisors, the official real estate coaching company of Pat Hiban Interviews Real Estate Rockstars, is offering a free guide. Just go to hibandigital.com/recruit. Increase listings, commissions, and referrals. Okay, Rockstar Nation, we have a great guest today, Mr. Mike Wall, coming from Dayton, Ohio, and he is killing it out there, and I'm excited to catch up with him today. So, Mike, welcome to Pat Hiban Interviews Real Estate Rockstars.
Pat, thank you so much for having me. I'm humbled.
Well, good. Well, hey, Mike, why don't you tell our Rockstar Nation a little bit about yourself so they could get to know you better?
Yeah, no worries. I've had my real estate license for about 12 years. I started off in this business as a buyer specialist for one of the top agents here at a RE/MAX office named Phil Herman. I did that for about 8 years, and then in 2007, everybody knows what happened. The market crashed, and I wrote it out for about 2 years. And in our area here, I think the buyer side business almost completely dried up. And then I ditched the real estate business, went into corporate America, and did that for about 5 years. I did keep my real estate license, but I just kept it in escrow. And I knew eventually at some point I would get back into the real estate business. But what I did after I left Phil's office is I started working for a technology company, just a local technology company, doing some consulting, sales work. And, I did that, like I said, for about 5 years and had some success. And I built that business up and was making a good six-figure income, but I just was not happy at all, Pat. So, I wanted to get back into real estate. And so what I did, essentially, and this was now about 16 months ago when I made the jump back into real estate, is I started calling expireds every morning. And when I started calling expireds, I built my listing inventory up to about 44 listings, and it was costing me more money to be at my consulting job than it was to be, servicing my real estate clients. And so what happened was about 16 months ago, I quit my job and went full bore into real estate. Sold 57 houses my first year full-time in the business, and just had a great year. And, we're just continuing to build things out here and just having a great time.
Wow, this is going to be a great interview because, here's a guy that was able to step back and look at it from an air game. Friends of mine talk about the difference between an air game and a ground game. A ground game is when you're in there, as a soldier fighting day to day. And then the air game is where, the airplanes and the helicopters can see the battlefield below and they can strategize. So Mike, worked in the trenches, in the ground game as a soldier for 8 years. Then he took off, looked at it from the air, and then went back in and said, when I'm going to do things differently now, I'm going to be a listing agent versus a buyer agent. I saw the market crash and I saw, everything. So this is going to be really good. And so anyways, Mike, so tell me about present day. I know you haven't been at it, since your 5-year hiatus. But tell me, like, what are the last 6 months or so, or year to date, or maybe even the last 12 months? Like, how many houses are you selling?
Yeah, so as of Monday this week, we just put our 83rd house under contract. We're sitting at right at about 12.5 million for the year this year, and we're really excited about where things are going. I think, you know, when I heard your show, I felt like, you know, and I listen to your show a lot, and I think it's fantastic, especially for people who are new into the business or struggling or just want to learn and get more ideas. But when I heard the show, you know, you talk a lot of these like uber successful agents who are doing like 400 or 500, 600 transactions a year. And I thought, you know, when you and I got together, it might be such a good show because I could share with your folks who are maybe just getting into the business or they're struggling to get ideas or they don't think it's possible, or even people who are thinking about transitioning in from corporate America, to show them, you know, the reality of this business and what it could actually be. So I think, you know, I think this interview should really speak to those folks and hopefully give them the wherewithal they need or the guidance they need to know that they could be successful in this business.
Okay, so you're looking at, obviously you're going to do over 100 houses this year, right? Probably what, buck 20 maybe by the end of the year?
Yeah, we'll go probably 120, 125, I think, at the end of the year. Probably right about 20 21 million by the end of the year.
Okay. So how do you essentially go from zero to within 24 months, let's say, 10 houses a month? Give us a play-by-play on exactly what Mike Wall did.
Absolutely, and that's a fantastic question. I think, you know, the answer for me is I built a prospecting-based business. So if you look at the different pillars of real estate, and there are several, actually there's just a few that are foundational, but prospecting is one of the foundational aspects of our business. And so what I decided to do, and if you think about prospecting from an overhead standpoint, it is probably the most inexpensive for a single agent to do, really. I mean, what I started doing when I got into the business is I would actually go into the MLS and pull expired. I wouldn't use any WedX or Vulcan 7 or anything like that because I could do it for free, and I didn't have a lot of capital, or I didn't want to invest a lot of capital. I wanted to see what I could do. And, you know, so eventually I worked my way up. I sat and made phone calls for 2 hours each and every day. I was religious about it. I did it on Saturdays. I did it on Sundays. And, you know, eventually built that listing inventory up. And you know, we sold a lot of houses that way. So I think when I got into the business, the answer to your question is we set our foundation as a team, as a prospecting company. I set my foundation as a prospecting agent. And we decided to build everything else around that pillar. And the fun thing about what I'm doing now is once you build out around that pillar is you get to do, you know, more interesting things like pull in like RedX or Vulcan, things to enhance your prospecting efforts, or if it's for sale by owners or expires or whatever you're doing. But that's where I think that I've had my most success is that I've decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do, Pat. I'm going to do expired listings, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it religiously every day. And then when I make money, I'm going to invest that money back into, you know, systems to help enhance that and to help make it better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what was the second thing you did? Then you just started banging out expireds, and we know about that. We know, you know, we've had people on a show on how they did it, and that's great that you did it. But then what did you do next once you started becoming an expired listing expert in Dayton, Ohio?
It was so funny because for me, it's like I think that once I started going on appointments, I mean, I was literally getting probably 90 to 95% of the appointments that I went on. And, you know, it's kind of like I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know, you know, I didn't know to be afraid. I didn't know to, I just didn't know that. I went out with the data that was provided through the MLS. I presented that data. I presented my plan to help get the property sold, and they listed with me. So from that standpoint, I think I had a lot to learn when I actually got the listing, because I think a place that I probably failed at early on was just follow-up. I had this massive listing inventory, and I had clients calling in, and wondering why, if their home wasn't selling, then I had to deal with that. So the next thing I did, the next logical step, obviously at that point, was to hire an admin to help come in and help facilitate some of that paperwork. So that was actually the next step, is to hire an admin. And what that allowed me to do is to leverage myself so that I could make more phone calls. And then I would start doing mailers, and then I would actually take expired packets. I would put together information on market sales, and I would drive it over to their house and knock on their door. And if they didn't answer their door, I would leave it on their door with my business card saying, "Hey, give me a call." And so it was kind of that land, air, sea attack approach. You know what I mean? It was, if I had an email address, I would email them. And so it was just whatever I could do to get the business. So that first year, 44 of those 57 sales were all expired listings.
Wow. Yeah, so I love this because you essentially took chapter 5 of my book, 6 Steps to 7 Figures, which is build on a success, right? Don't build from the ground up, build from a success up. And you basically took an expired listing or several expired listings, and then you built on that success. So then you went and you started mailers that said just listed or just sold or I'm in your neighborhood, and you're suddenly a neighborhood expert. Maybe even because you only have one house, or most of the time probably you only have one house in a neighborhood, but you're more of an expert than who's in front of them right now if they're thinking about selling. And you just built and built and built, and I love that. That's a great story.
Yeah, and that's right. I think, especially for a new agent, and we as new agents, they have all these fears and limiting beliefs. And, sometimes to the point to where they paralyze you, and you don't essentially take action. So for me, it was just about, grinding it out, putting my head down, making sure I showed up every single day and putting in the work. But you're right. I mean, so you build on those activities, and then eventually you get to where, you have more money to reinvest in your business so that you can do things that might generate phone calls versus you actually chasing business. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've actually got people now calling me, which is great 16 months into the business, because that business is a lot easier than, waking up and running from 8 to 10 doing these expired leads. And it's obviously, it's more rewarding.
Yeah. And I'm sure you came off of a corporate job making 6 figures a year, and you had to hit the ground running, and that was probably pressure in itself. You're like, hey man, I'm used to making 10 G's a month as it is, and now I'm going to go to 0. I need to get up, wake up and hustle. Right.
That's right. And it was tough for my wife too. I tell you that conversation, honey, I'm quitting my 6-figure year to start going into real estate where there is no guaranteed commission. So it's, that was an interesting conversation. But yeah, like I said, I think from the standpoint of if you get up and if you're religious about your activities each day, this business will reward you. And the commissions, our average sale price is not as high as some of the other areas, but neither is our cost of living. So I think that the interesting thing about where I'm at now, Pat, and this is kind of jumping over to another subject, but the fact that I need to learn, and I am learning to look at my business as a business, and eventually at some point stepping outside of my business and being just a business owner and leveraging people to come in and take over what I'm doing. I'm at the point now to where I have 4 buyer specialists.
Wow.
I have a listing manager and a contract manager. And so for me, it's like, okay, and honestly, I still get up every day from 8 to 10 and I call expireds, and I do all my follow-up. And I don't mind doing that. But at some point I know I'll get to where I'm in my business and I'll think, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't know when that'll be, but I know I need to start planning for that.
Wow. Well, at the rate you're going, I'm sure that's going to be like next month. I mean, that's so logical. I love that. So Mike, what is something that you see other agents do where you say, the juice is just not worth the squeeze?
Yeah, I love that question. I think the juice is not worth the squeeze for agents who are chasing the next shiny object. Because if you think about it as agents, we get all these marketing calls and marketing emails, and we talked about this at the beginning of the call, but there are really only a couple foundational pillars for generating business in real estate. And so I guess my answer to that question is not chasing that next quote-unquote shiny object, because we get so many of those things thrown at us.
And why do you, and so obviously your one thing and your focus has been and is expireds. And so why do you like expireds so much?
I guess because I've had such success. If I had looked at my business and I hadn't had success in that area, I would have had to have reinvent myself and do something else. But and I always say we now because I do appreciate my team and what they're doing for me too. But I think from the standpoint of that, I think, it's hard because.
Well, it's probably because these people are, every morning you get a new list of people that are raising their hands that say, I need a real estate agent.
Yeah, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It really is for me and now we're doing some really cool stuff with video email, and we're able to get emailed for expireds now where we can set up drip campaigns with video email, and we're just, like I said, it's once you start making the money from the expireds or whatever it is you're doing, if it's for sale by owners or short sales, you start reinvesting in tools to help you enhance and get better at those areas of your business, and that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm really want to get everything set on autopilot. The only thing I've had difficulty doing that with, obviously, now is the phone calls, because you feel like as an agent, no one can do it better than you, right?
Yeah, well, everyone feels like that. We're all control freaks in a sense, but you'll get over that, once your profit is significant enough that you'll be like, hey, someone can do it better than me, and I can still make a lot of money. That's the key, right?
Right.
But so, okay, so give us some exact tools. Like you say, you're using these tools. You mentioned video. You mentioned getting expireds emails. Can you share with us some of these so that we can use them?
Yeah, sure. So when I started into the business, I just started using RedX after I started generating a little income, and that did really well because I would do a mailer through RedX, and then I would make my calls through RedX. And then I found a tool called Vulcan 7, which has been fantastic for me because it actually brings all the data in. But what it also does is it usually brings in a prospect's email. And so that allows us then to automate a response through a drip campaign through a system we call, it's called BombBomb. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Yeah,
but we build out. Yeah, we build out the expired campaign in BombBomb, and what it is basically is it's a video. It's an introductory video with me, saying, "Hi, this is Mike Wall. I'm sorry your home expired," and then sharing my seller packet information with them. And then it's a series of 6 drips after that with all video, and I get this 6 days straight. And then so we're doing the mailer, we're doing the video email, and we're doing the phone call 3 times a day. So, we're listing, we're listing anywhere from 6 to 10 expired listings every single month.
Wow. And you really are bombing them, huh?
Bombing them, yeah.
So, what book are you reading now, Mike?
That's a great question. I always, when I started into this business, I was reading, just like business essential real estate books. But as I've gone through my tenure and learned so much more about, this business, I've started reading books more about dealing just with people, because I feel like for the most part, we're psychologists. Because if you think about it, people call up and they say, I want to sell my house, or why isn't my house selling? Essentially that comes from an emotion, and it's typically, it's one thing. They wouldn't be calling you if their house was sold, right? So you have to learn how to deal with those people. And I think most weak agents, what happens is they never call for price reductions. They never have those confrontational phone calls. And that's where you make your money in this business. One big mistake that I made early on, Pat, is I built the listing inventory up to 88 listings. And that's great, right? You think 88 listings, man, that's great. You built 88 listings. But what I stopped doing is I stopped prospecting my own listings. So I built this really big listing inventory up, and I continued to prospect for new business when I had this big listing inventory.
And then when they
And it's
call
like,
you,
so
you're
what I had,
defensive. Yeah.
yeah, and so what I had to do is I'm like, but you think about it this way, those are all paychecks, right? Those 88 listings are all paychecks, and they're all ready to go. But I wasn't prospecting those folks, so I wasn't prospecting for price reductions. I wasn't those confrontational phone calls that you need to have in order to get those sellers in the state of mind where they need to be to price the property right so that it'll sell. So if that's that's something I'm learning to get better with. I'm now scheduling in my seller calls. I do them on Friday because I feel like everybody feels good on Friday.
That's
and
true.
I'll do
Good
2
point.
to 3. Yeah, I'll do 1 to 2 hours of seller prospecting calls on Friday mornings, and I'll go in for price reductions because if you think about it this way, when I call an expired lead, right, I may or may not make contact with them. They may or may not be ready to list their house at that point. And so I'll continue to follow up. When I have, 88 listings that are sitting in my inventory, and if I made one phone call and got one price reduction, that would probably lead to one sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm learning, and I'm continuing to learn. I think the great part about, our call today is the fact that I'm still in the grind. I'm not selling 400 or 500 houses a year. I hope to get there at some point.
Sure.
But I think this is just a testament for those guys who are just starting into the business or struggling, and to give them hope that there is a way to be successful in this business.
Yeah,
and it's just.
It sounds like to me it's for you it's just a lot of calling and a lot of assertive action rather than reaction. And I wanted to talk to you about that because you mentioned on Fridays you're in action and you're saving your listings and getting them sold. And so what is the script that you're using to get price reductions? Because, a lot of areas of the country now are starting to feel a little bit of a pullback, some slowness. There's a need out there for price reductions. What are some scripts, or what is the main script that you're using on Fridays to get a price reduction?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think, and I'll preface that by saying one thing. Knowing what to say is important, but taking action is even more important. If you don't take action, then you're not going to get the expired lead to list with you. You're not going to get the price reduction from the seller. So I would say, and people get so paralyzed by not knowing what to say, and so they never make the phone call because they feel like, well, I don't know what to say. I guess I'm just not going to make the phone call. So I would say, even if you don't know what to say, make the phone call and fail forward, learn what to say, make the mistakes, and then get better. But, if I'm calling for a price reduction, it's, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is my law. I notice we haven't had any showings in 2 to 3 weeks now. That's a little bit disappointing. If I'm looking at the comparable sales, you're priced at $105 a square foot, and it looks like all of our competitors were going somewhere around $100 a square foot. And so I think, based on where we're at right now, we need to make some sort of an adjustment so that we can be more competitive. And, it might be, and then you shut up and listen. I try not to talk too much. I let people talk it out. I find that a lot of times people are very reactive up front. And if you just let them, release all that hot air and then respond after they responded, then most time they'll carry on a normal conversation. They'll come back down and they'll be willing to reason with you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to analyze this a little bit. So I first of all, I love how you say, you're essentially being them. You're saying what you would expect, or maybe a year ago you heard when they called you. We haven't had any showings in 2 weeks. Traffic has been terrible. I mean, you're essentially taking the wind out of their sails, and not allowing them to vent to you because you're venting for them. You're saying you're disappointed too. Yeah, this sucks. You're kind of like being empathetic and also taking the wind out of their sails. So you're just like, traffic has been terrible lately. We haven't had any showings in 2 weeks, and then you're turning it into, you're taking the emotion. You're starting with emotion. You're finishing with analysis, and an analysis regarding square footage, which a lot of people other than builders, don't use enough. Realtors don't use that enough, right. So you're saying $100 a square foot versus 105, and obviously anybody listening, all you got to do is take the three competitors and go to the tax record, find out the square footage and divide it by the price of the house. And you can see how right. yours compares. And I don't know how, as a seller, how you fight that, how if you're saying, hey, this guy's at 102 a square foot and this guy's at 107 and you're at 115, how do you fight that? I mean, how do you, it's so specific that I think it's difficult for them to argue.
Yeah, and let me add one thing to that, too. This is very, very, very important, so if you're listening, take notes. If the only time you're calling your sellers is to get price reductions, you're probably not going to get a price reduction.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. So most of these calls, so how often, on Fridays, do you ask for a price reduction? Is it every third time you call them? What?
What I'll have my listing manager do is I'll have her pull up sellers who haven't shown their property in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And those are calls that are made. And then we also, after every showing, we do a showing feedback call and email. And then my listing manager will also follow up with our listing base and say, hey, this is what's going on this week. If there's been a sale in the neighborhood, she'll report the sale in the neighborhood and tell them how much it sold for. If there's a pending in the neighborhood, she'll report the pending in the neighborhood. That way, when I follow up with that seller, it's not, hey, Mike, we haven't heard from you in 3 months when you listed the property, and now you're calling us for a price reduction, because then, Pat, you do get a lot of pushback because it doesn't seem like you're authentic. It doesn't seem. I use that first line where I'm emphasizing, and I am disappointed that their house hasn't shown in 3 weeks. It doesn't seem authentic if I call 3 months later and just ask for price reduction.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Very good stuff. Well, this is amazing. And so what have you learned being a buyer agent for 8 years? What have you learned in having 4 of your own buyer agents that you could share with our audience? What are you doing differently, I should say?
Here's the mindset that you need to have when you're shifting to a team, because it is difficult, I think, because what you're doing is you're generating leads, and then you're essentially giving them away in hopes that somebody else would convert them. I would add that when you're hiring people, that make sure you spend time with them. And when I say spend time with them, we do a call night on Monday nights where I'll actually go in and if they get leads in our database, spend the first 3 minutes of that 2-hour call night. We do it from 4 to 6 on Mondays. And I'll make calls right in front of them. And I'll call, leads that have come into one of my buyer agents' databases. And it's just raw training. You know what I mean? They see how I'm handling objections. And so they get a really good kind of consults view of how I want it done. So I would say if you're hiring people, obviously you want to do it your way. And if you want them to do it your way, you have to show them your way. And when I say that, the only way to do that is to spend time training them. And, when I say spend time training them, it's getting in front of them and showing them how you operate. And I can't think of any better explanation than that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, a lot of agents give up buyers because they hate working with buyers and they never want to do them again. But then what they fail to recognize is, like you said, that, even if you hate buyers, you need to be able to work with buyers at least on the phone so your other agents can learn. Otherwise, they're learning by just, osmosis or what have you. So that's great. That's great. Well, listen, Mike, let's finish this off with our flagship question, and that is this. And you're going to answer this well, I already know. But if you were thrown on a TV reality show similar to Survivor, and there were 9 other agents other than yourself on this island. On this island, we have commerce. We have people buying and selling houses. And I put you guys all on there, 10 agents. Each agent has a laptop computer, a cell phone, and $500 cash. The agent that sells the least amount of houses each week gets thrown off the island. At the end of 10 weeks, there's only one agent left. Hopefully it's you. And they win $1 million, let's say. How is Mike Wall going to win this reality show?
Easy question, Pat. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a Bluetooth headset. Second thing I'm going to do is implore Vulcan 7. And I'm going to sit down wherever I'm at, and I'm just going to start dialing for dollars, my friend. And I'm going to crush everybody.
Wow, so you're going to buy two things, a headset and Vulcan 7, and you're just going to go crazy with the Cheese Whiz.
That's right, brother.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great answer. I really appreciate you, Mike. Thank you so much for being on Pat Hiban Interviews Real Estate Rockstars. All of Mike's show notes can be found at hibandigital.com/Mike Wall. Have a great day, Mike.
All right, brother. Thanks.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed this session of Real Estate Rockstars. I'm Pat Hiban, and I appreciate you spending time tuning in for some rock-solid advice. I encourage you to take action on something that you have connected with. These insights, along with goal setting, will help carry you to achieving your destiny. Visit hibandigital.com for resources, how-tos, ebooks, and so much more. Also, reach out to us on Twitter. My handle is @Pat Hiban. And don't forget, Rockstar Nation, keep rocking. Do you find yourself playing smaller in order to make others feel more comfortable? Are you looking for an environment where other men share their greatness and would inspire you to grow to levels that you never dreamed possible? Do you want to join a true mastermind, a mastermind in the exact format that Napoleon Hill maps out in his great book, Think and Grow Rich? GoBundance is an exclusive men's fraternity of successful entrepreneurs gathered together for adventure, accountability, and phenomenal growth in all aspects of life. Go to GoBundance.com and type in Rockstars in the Referred By section for a free, no obligation consultation and $500 off your membership should you decide to join in the future.